Have you ever felt invisible? Like no matter how hard you work, the world only sees your uniform, not your soul? Today's story is about a man who scrubbed floors so his daughter could touch the sky, and the wealthy woman who finally saw them both. It's a story of grit, ballet, and a destiny that couldn't be denied. Before we begin, please hit that like button to support touching stories like this, and subscribe to our channel so you never miss a moment of inspiration. Let's dive in. They looked right through him. To the wealthy patrons of the Ellington Conservatory of Dance, Samuel was just part of the architecture, somewhere between the mahogany bar and the floor-to-ceiling mirrors. He was the cleaning staff, a man in a gray jumpsuit whose existence was acknowledged only when a trash can was full or a scuff mark appeared on the pristine marley floor. Samuel didn't mind the invisibility. In fact, he preferred it. Invisibility allowed him to linger in the doorways of Studio A little longer than necessary. It allowed him to absorb the piano music that drifted through the halls. But mostly, it allowed him to keep his daughter, Maya, hidden in the janitor's closet he called an office until his shift ended. Maya was 12 years old, with limbs that seemed too long for her body and eyes that absorbed everything. While Samuel pushed his mop bucket across the lobby, Maya sat on a crate of cleaning supplies, her homework balanced on her knees. But she wasn't studying math. She was listening. She knew the rhythm of a glissade before she knew how to spell it. She knew the sharp intake of breath before a grand jeté. And when the studios finally emptied at 9 p.m., and Samuel began his deep clean of the main performance hall, Maya would slip off her worn sneakers. 5 minutes, baby girl, Samuel would whisper, his back aching from a double shift. Just 5 minutes before security does the rounds. That was all she needed. One rainy Tuesday in November, the conservatory was quieter than usual. The elite students, girls with sleek buns and parents who drove imported SUVs, had gone home. Samuel was buffering the floor in the reception area. Maya slipped into Studio A. She didn't have pink satin shoes. She had socks with a hole in the left toe. She didn't have a leotard, she wore leggings and one of Samuel's old t-shirts tied at the waist. She moved to the center of the room. In her mind, the silence was replaced by Tchaikovsky. She lifted her chin, mimicking the posture of the lead instructor, Madame Du Bois. Maya began to move. It wasn't just imitation, it was interpretation. Where the academy girls were stiff and technically perfect, Maya was fluid. She attacked the air. She spun, not with the fear of falling, but with the desperate joy of flying. She didn't hear the door click open. Mrs. Eleanor Vance had forgotten her phone. At 70 years old, Eleanor was a fixture of the city's arts board. She was the widow of an oil tycoon, known for her sharp tongue, her checkbook, and her intolerance for mediocrity. She had once been a dancer herself, decades ago, before an injury stole her career. Eleanor stood in the shadows of the doorway, her hand gripping the brass handle. She watched the janitor's daughter. She saw the sickled foot, bad technique, but she also saw the extension, God-given flexibility, and the raw, terrifying emotion in the girl's face. Maya finished her combination, dropping into a breathless curtsy to an imaginary audience. When she looked up, she froze. The wealthy woman in the fur coat was staring at her. Maya scrambled back, grabbing her sneakers. "I'm sorry. I'm leaving. My dad, he's just cleaning. Please don't fire him." Eleanor stepped into the light. The click of her heels on the floor sounded like gunshots in the empty room. "What is your name, child?" "Maya. Maya Williams." "And who taught you to port de bras like that?" I watch through the crack in the door sometimes. When I'm waiting for my dad." Samuel came running in then, panic in his eyes. He saw the wealthy donor and his daughter cornered. "Mrs. Vance. I apologize. She knows she's not supposed to be in here. We're leaving right now." Eleanor raised a hand, silencing him. She looked from the terrified father in his gray jumpsuit to the girl trembling in her socks. "Samuel, isn't it?" Eleanor asked. "Yes, ma'am. Bring her to my office tomorrow at 4 p.m. Not the janitor's closet. The main office." "Ma'am, please," Samuel pleaded, clutching his mop handle. "I can't lose this job. She won't do it again." "If you don't bring her," Eleanor said, her voice like steel, "you will be fired. Do not be late." The next 24 hours were agony. Samuel was convinced he was being let go. He ironed his best shirt. He told Maya to braid her hair neatly. When they arrived at the office, the secretary looked at them with confusion, but ushered them in. Eleanor Vance was sitting behind a desk that cost more than Samuel made in a year. Beside her sat Madame Du Bois, the intimidating headmistress of the school. "Sit," Eleanor commanded. Samuel sat on the edge of the chair. Maya stood next to him. "Madame Du Bois," Eleanor began, "I want this girl enrolled in the Advanced Foundation program starting Monday." The room went silent. Madame Du Bois laughed nervously. Eleanor, surely you're joking. This is the janitor's child. She has no training. The tuition alone is $20,000 a year. And the dress code. I have written the check for the tuition, Eleanor interrupted, sliding an envelope across the desk. As for the training, she has something you can't teach. She has hunger. Your girls? They dance because their mothers want them to. This girl dances because she has to. Samuel felt tears pricking his eyes. Mrs. Vance. I can't accept this. The uniforms, the shoes. I can't afford the extras. Eleanor turned to Samuel. Her expression softened, just a fraction. Samuel, you have cleaned the floors of this institution for 10 years. You have polished the stages that other people's children dance on. It is time your daughter danced on them. I will cover the expenses. All of them. Maya started the next week. It was not a fairy tale. It was a war. The other girls were cruel in the quiet, polite way that only the wealthy can be. They whispered about Maya's hair, which she wore in braids instead of a slick bun because she didn't know how to treat it for ballet. They whispered about her body, which was muscular and athletic, not waif-like. They refused to partner with her. Check your wallet, one girl whispered when Maya walked to the bar. The janitor's kid is here. Maya went home crying every night for the first month. Her feet bled from the pointe shoes Eleanor had bought her, shoes that were supposed to be pink, but which Maya had to color with foundation to match her skin tone, marking her as different even down to her toes. I want to quit, Daddy, she sobbed one evening, soaking her feet in a plastic tub of salt water in their small living room. They don't want me there. Samuel sat on the floor beside her. He took her calloused foot in his rough hand. Maya, look at my hands. She looked. They were cracked, dry, scarred from chemicals and labor. I scrub toilets, Samuel said softly. I empty trash. I am invisible to them so that you can be seen. If you quit because it's hard, you're letting them decide who you are. You dance for you. You dance for us. You don't dance for them. Maya returned the next day. She stopped trying to make friends. She focused entirely on the mirror. When the other girls gossiped during water breaks, Maya stretched. When they went home, Maya stayed, with Eleanor Vance watching from the corner of the room. Eleanor became her shadow mentor. She hired a private coach to help Maya catch up on technique. She took Maya to see Giselle and Swan Lake. She never coddled Maya. She was harder on her than anyone else. Point your foot. Eleanor would bark, banging her cane on the floor. You are dancing like a truck driver. Grace, Maya. Use your spine. 2 years passed. Maya was 14. The annual showcase was approaching. This year, scouts from the Royal Ballet School in London were coming. It was unheard of for them to recruit from a small American conservatory, but they were coming to see a specific prodigy, a girl named Jessica, whose father was a senator. Jessica was technically flawless, but cold as ice. She was the favorite for the solo. 2 days before the showcase, the cast list was posted. Jessica had the solo. Maya was in the back row of the corps de ballet. Maya didn't cry. She just went to the studio and practiced until her toes went numb. Samuel was mopping the hallway outside when he heard the crash. He ran in. Maya was on the floor, clutching her ankle. Jessica was standing over her, a look of feigned shock on her face. I didn't see her, Jessica said. She was in my way. Maya's ankle was swollen, but not broken. The school nurse wrapped it and told her to rest for a week. I can't rest, Maya said, panic rising. The scouts are coming in 2 days. You're in the back row, Maya, Madame Du Bois said dismissively. It doesn't matter if you sit this one out. Eleanor Vance heard about the incident. She stormed into the studio, demanding to see the security footage. It showed Jessica deliberately tripping Maya. Eleanor marched into the board meeting that afternoon. She threatened to pull her funding, millions of dollars, unless the casting was reopened. She demanded a dance-off the morning of the showcase. The morning of the show, Maya's ankle throbbed. She had taped it so tight she lost circulation. Samuel drove her to the theater in his beat-up sedan. You ready? He asked. It hurts, Dad. Pain is temporary, Samuel said, quoting something she had told him once. Glory is forever. The dance-off was brutal. Jessica danced perfectly. Then it was Maya's turn. She couldn't do the jumps she usually did because of her ankle. So she improvised. She changed the choreography. She focused on emotion, on the upper body, on the storytelling. She danced the pain. She danced the anger of being tripped, the shame of being poor, the pride of her father's sacrifice. When she finished, the room was silent. The Royal Ballet Scout, a stern man named Mr. Sterling, leaned forward. Who is that? He asked Madame Du Bois. That is, a scholarship student, Du Bois muttered. She dances the solo tonight, Sterling said. Or I leave now. That night, the theater was packed. Samuel didn't have a seat, he stood in the wings, wearing his work uniform because he had to clean up after the show. Eleanor Vance sat in the front row, diamonds glittering at her throat. The lights dimmed. The music for the Firebird solo began. Maya stepped onto the stage. The lights blinded her, but she felt the floor beneath her feet, the floor her father had polished. She didn't feel the pain in her ankle. She felt weightless. She leaped, and for a moment, it seemed she hung in the air, defying gravity. She was no longer the janitor's daughter. She was the Firebird. She was magic. When she took her final pose, chest heaving, sweat dripping, there was a second of silence. Then, the applause exploded. It wasn't polite applause. It was a roar. People stood up. Maya looked into the wings. She saw her father. He was crying, his face buried in his hands. 6 months later. The letter arrived at their small apartment. It bore the crest of the Royal Ballet School in London. Full scholarship. Living stipend included. The day Maya left for the airport, she stopped at the conservatory. She walked into the main office where Eleanor Vance was sitting. Maya placed a pair of worn-out pointe shoes on the desk. Thank you, Maya said. Eleanor looked at the shoes, then at Maya. The old woman's eyes were wet. Send me a postcard from Covent Garden. Maya walked out to the car where Samuel was waiting. He loaded her suitcases. You know, Samuel said as they drove toward the departure gate. I'm going to miss hearing you practice. You won't have to, Maya smiled. I bought you a plane ticket. For the premiere. Eleanor paid for your hotel. The Royal Opera House in London. The velvet curtains parted. The crowd was hushed. The program read, Principal Dancer, Maya Williams. In the royal box, sat an old woman in a fur coat. And right next to her, in a tuxedo that he finally owned, not rented, sat Samuel. As Maya took the stage, radiant and regal, she didn't look at the audience. She looked up at the box. She caught her father's eye. She placed her hand over her heart, and then, she danced. She danced for the girl in the socks. She danced for the woman who opened the door. But mostly, she danced for the man who cleaned the floor, so she could fly. Maya went on to become one of the most celebrated ballerinas of her generation, breaking barriers for dancers of color everywhere. Samuel eventually retired, and Maya bought him a house with a garden, no floors to scrub, just flowers to tend. It reminds us that talent is everywhere, but opportunity is not. Sometimes, all it takes is one person to open a door. If this story moved you, please like this video and subscribe for more incredible true stories. Share this with someone who needs to be reminded to never give up on their dreams. Thanks for watching.